is actually oh, there we go. Fire Island is definitely something I am interested in. I have a lot of interest in it. First of all, I live in Bayshore, and I am literally right down the block from the Fire Island ferries. Second of all, I'm an avid fat tire rider, which means you have the 5-inch tires on the bike, and you go down from Robert Moses Field 5 all the way to Fire Island Inlet. That's pretty much my Saturday morning if it's not raining and if it's low tide, hopefully. So I do have have an emotional attachment, but we're going to discuss a lot of people that had even a greater emotional attachment to Fire Island during this lecture. So first things first, we're from various places. I'm looking at the place here. So we got Hampton Bays, we got Westhampton. I see one person that says Ocean Beach, fire police department, I believe. That's really cool. So they might have a little more interest. I might be picking on that individual a little bit later, if that's okay with them. So this is Fire Island. 17 towns make up Fire Island, and it's the closest national park in the tri-state area, the closest one. And the interesting thing about this specific stretch of land, it's probably one of the only areas in lower New York that don't have a highway or a main road going through something or traversing somewhere, north, south, east, west. It doesn't have a road, which is probably one of the main reasons it's preserved. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's talk about the 17 towns that encompass Fire Island, and let's turn back the clocks. Turn back the clocks before Airbnb and all this other stuff. So, first of all, we got right here Robert Moses Park, which is the only place you're going to really essentially have paved roads. You got the Fire Island Lighthouse, and this is where the island ended about 200 years ago. This was just kind of sandbar prior, and Longshore Drift developed this island and made it grow, which we're going to discuss in a minute. So let's hold that thought. So you got Fire Island Lighthouse right here, and then going east, we got Kismet. Kismet, historically speaking, is going to be the first place to have a resort on Fire Island. And also, later on, it's also going to be a place where locals go to hang out. That's going to be the local spot. Moving east a little more, we're going to have Salt Air. Salt Air is going to be the Madison Avenue executives. They're going to build their homes there. They're not your Long Islanders, very white collar executives. So they're going to be the ones that inhabit that area. Now, Fair Harbor, just east of Salt Air, and I am going to skip a little bit. I hope you all forgive me. That's going to be an artist community. That's going to be an artist community in its early stages. And then we got Dunewood. Dunewood, we're going to deal with a lot. That's going to be marketed as a family community, and it's going to be developed and built by the Barbash family. Um, Murray Barbash and Irvin Like, his brother-in-law, and also the attorney, he's going to be he's going to be involved in cleaning up this kind of landfill that's on Fire Island, and he's going to make a community out of it, make about 100 homes, and that's what's going to be Dunewood, and it's going to be family based. You're not going to be able to have your bars and all that other type of partying that a lot of other places on Fire Island has and is known for. Moving east, you're going to have Lonelyville and Atlantic Beach. Once again, these are artist communities. Mel Brooks is going to live and actually he's probably going to have a home in Fair Harbor for a while. And later on, that home is going to be rented. He's going to have a home rented out in Atlantique. Then we're going to have Robin's Nest, Fire Island Summer Club. And then you have, let's just call this the Greater Ocean Beach area. That's going to be built by the Wilbur family in 1908. And we're going to go through this again. And that area right there is going to be upper middle class New York City people. And later, it's going to be more geared towards the artist community, more nuanced artist. Fun fact about Ocean Beach, if you ever saw the Newsday picture or been to Bayshore Historical Society, they actually have a cool picture of Martin Luther King on a bicycle in Ocean Beach. Hang on one second. Murray, Westhampton, Murray, can you unmute yourself real quick? I just want to see. Can everyone see the map that's projected real quick? I'm just wondering. Can everyone see that?
If you can't see it, make sure you're toggled off of gallery view.
Can everyone see it now?
Okay, Liz can see it. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, cool, cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, guys, just please let me know, okay? Okay. So once again, Shelly, I want to make sure you're with us. I don't want to lose any leave. Okay, I just want to leave anyone behind. Okay. So if you can't see it now, just shoot me a little text. Okay, let's move on. So now we also have Ocean Bay. Oh, I'm sorry. Ocean Beach is going to be more nuanced artist community. And you got a famous picture. It's going to attract a lot of famous people there. One of the most famous people there that's going to go for a fundraiser and vacation is Martin Luther King. And there's a famous picture in Newsday about Martin Luther King trying to ride a bicycle with no chain guard with those long pants on. And hey, if you guys been on Fire Island, a lot of those bikes don't have chain guards, and we all know what happens with baggy long pants. They get caught in it, and you can see them pedaling that bike a little awkward, which is actually pretty funny. Now, moving on, we got Seaview, which is the only place in Fire Island that has a synagogue. It's also going to be, believe it or not, even before that, it's going to be company housing for a fish processing company, which we'll get into. Ocean Bay Park is going to be Finn's. That's the restaurant there. But before that, it's going to be a Coast Guard base slash Fire Island life-saving station. Moving on, we got Point of Woods. Point of Woods is a really interesting area. It's going to have covenants clauses. Catholics cannot buy a house or rent a house in Point of Woods. Jewish people couldn't. People of color couldn't. The Italians couldn't. Once again, it's going to be a strict, hardcore, conservative, Protestant, um, essentially essentially a Protestant spinoff that's going to own that whole area. I wasn't going to say congregation, but it's multiple conservative Protestant congregations. And they're going to keep those covenants clauses in those leases, land leases, because it's leasehold property for a very long time. So they still have that gripe and they still going through these inequities, let's say. Now, moving east a little more, we're going to have Sunken Forest, which is going to be one of the only places of the hardwood maritime forest. There's only 7 of them in the world, and this right here is one of them. And then Oakleyville, Sailors Haven, that's going to encompass that area as well. And then we got Cherry Grove. Cherry Grove is going to be one of the first openly gay communities in all of America. I argue that it is the first openly gay community in America. There's a little competition. Someone else will sometimes, like most people will sit there and argue and say, no, there was a community in San Francisco. But I believe Cherry Grove predated that by a decade. But once again, we'll just call it one of the first openly gay communities in America. Then we got the Fire Island Pines. That's another openly gay community as well that was established. And also, it's the community with the highest value of homes. Very interestingly enough, some of the homes there are gorgeous. They're like castles in the dunes, literally. I joke around and call them sandcastles. The other place you have is Water Island. Water Island, and this is important, I need you to put a pin on this and remember, is 400 feet wide in high tide. Just think about that for a second. We'll circle back to that, but I need you to put that right there and think about that. So Water Island, fun fact, is where White House Resort used to be, where the Roosevelt family used to vacation. And that was pretty much the basis of Water Island. Also, it's 400 feet wide. Another town you're going to have right next to it, in between Water Island and the Pines, is called Talisman. Now, Talisman is going to be owned by the manager of the Rolling Stones, their early manager, and it's going to be owned by the guy that's the chief producer of Hair that brought it to Broadway. Um, these 2 gentlemen are going to literally make a resort for high-end jet-setting people. And this resort is allegedly where the Twist was founded, the dance. Chubby Checkers, the Twist, allegedly that is where it was started. So that's a fun fact. Today, the resort is abandoned. And if you're an urban explorer, it's kind of cool to check out. It's called Barnett Beach. So then we're going to go to Davis Park. That's going to be an artist community. The White Horse Tavern crowd from the village is going to go there. And if we know our history a little bit about Moses, Jane Jacobs was just around the area, one of the big defeats towards Moses and his Lower Manhattan Expressway. And she got all her support from the White House Tavern. I mean, I'm sorry, the White Horse Tavern. And all of them coincidentally, are going to be vacationing in Davis Park. It's kind of going to be a local hangout. So Watch Hill, it's going to be more rustic, and we're going to get to that a little later. And we also got a bunch of other communities that are going to be abandoned when the Fire Island National Seashore was developed due to pretty much the legal terminology. So this is pretty much the whole synopsis of Fire Island in a nutshell. And I definitely overlooked a lot, but don't worry about it. This is just a brief introduction. But here comes another person that had another view of Fire Island that was counter to everyone else's view. His name was Robert Moses. This guy right here. When we discuss Robert Moses, there is a duality about Robert Moses. Coming home from John Jay College, where I work in Manhattan, I sometimes drive, sometimes I don't take the train. And when I do drive in, depending on my classes, because you kind of beat traffic, I took a Robert Moses Road to get there. And sometimes I take a Robert Moses Bridge to get there or to come home. And when there's too much traffic, I take Ocean Parkway, which is a Robert Moses Parkway. So there is a duality. Some of the projects he had did withstand the test of time. They are flawed. They did cause environmental damage, a lot of them. But at the same time, his projects did open up the suburbs. I'm pretty sure none of us will be here, living here, if the suburbs weren't opened up eventually. I don't know if that was his idea, but either way, he opened it up for commerce, and that was his idea. But Robert Moses is standing right here in front of the Babylon Town Supervisor next to the Fire Island Inlet Bridge. Just want to go back to this. Robert Moses Park was originally named Fire Island State Park. It was changed because before Robert Moses left his job, he renamed it after himself. And he did that because he had no love for the people on Fire Island, because they're the ones that are going to lead to his demise. So he wanted to make sure they saw his name every day, which was a very Robert Moses move. And we'll get to that. So bringing it back to the history here, 3,500 years ago, you got longshore drift transporting 450,000 cubic yards of sediment that's going to join a bunch of little islands into a peninsula around Quogue. It's going to remain a peninsula until the Great Storm of 1690 that's going to cut it off and make it an island. Once again, longshore drift is the sand blowing from Hudson Canyon to Montauk, Montauk to Hudson Canyon. It's going to start as a sandbar. It's going to grow lengthwise. And then you're going to get a root system that's going to come in place and hold that sand together. And this is how you're going to get the birth of Fire Island. Now when we talk about the 6-mile stretch of the end of Fire Island, which is Robert Moses Park, this, well, Mike, I'm not done with the map anymore. This is a slide, just to throw it out there. Tell me if you can see the slide, Mike. This is going to become this 6-mile stretch, which is current day Robert Moses Park. This is going to become, hold on, it was going to be created about 200 years ago, and it's going to start the same way. So where the lighthouse is, just going back to this though, about to show the map in 1 second. This is where Fire Island essentially is going to end, right there, okay? That when they built that lighthouse, 1850s, the island ended there and everything else was kind of just a sandbar, okay? So that being said, that is going to be the growth of that 6-mile stretch. It's very new, less than 200 years old, okay? So moving on. Now, the sediment on Fire Island varies, which has a variation, not just of the sediment, but also a variation of vegetation. So there's parts of Fire Island about 2,000 feet deep that is bedrock. There is parts, but the main layers of it is pretty much sediment of fine layer quartz sand, shell fragment, and if you go deep enough by the bedrock area, you probably have a thick layer of clay and mica. Once again, this was a peninsula that joined a bunch of islands together. So the diverse sediment does create various vegetation, including a salt marsh, coastal plain, a vegetation of beach grass, and also a hardwood forest, which is very rare. because of the lack of nutrients that's usually in sand. But this is going to make Fire Island stand out from a lot of other areas. So in comes the indigenous people. The indigenous people of 10,000 years ago. Now, there's some things we should know here. And the biggest takeaway you should know about the indigenous people is there's no such thing as 13 tribes. It was all one tribe. So what happened is when the Europeans came here, they see 13 settlements of one tribe, the Montaukett. So when they see these 13 settlements, they literally start saying, okay, this settlement is a tribe. So Unkachug is a settlement of the Montaukett. They are going to become the Unkachug tribe. Shinnecock, once again, Shinnecock tribe. Fun fact about the Shinnecock tribe, they are the only first contact nation reservation in this country, meaning that when the Europeans got off the boat, they were exactly in that spot. You don't have that anywhere in this country, which is amazing. So these 13 settlements of the Montaukett Nation are going to be a compass of the Algonquin Confederation, which is going to stretch all the way down to Delaware. So the Algonquin Confederation, essentially, you got all these tribal confederations. It's going to be the Montauk, and then the Montauk are going to break off into 13 separate tribes because of the isolation from the Europeans. So once again, the indigenous people are going to use this island to their advantage. And they're going to be the first inhabitants. And the big takeaway is they had balance. That's the biggest thing. And also they had very interesting names for the island. Sewanok, land of shells. Once again, wampum is a big thing. They take the shells, make the currency out of it. Think of Long Island and the Algonquin Confederation as the mint, the place that makes the money, Also, you got Pomaloc, which is land of tribute. So going back to the indigenous people of this area, they're mainly going to have a balance. And also, let's go back to, before we go back to this, let's go back to where we get the name Fire Island from. There is many theories, many theories. I'm sure our friend that's in the Ocean Beach Police Department who's on probably heard many of these, and I'm probably being really redundant. But I'll just talk about one for now, and we'll get into the others later. So the first one is this. First theory is the indigenous people were not whalers in dugout canoes. No indigenous person took a dugout canoe and went in the middle of the ocean to go hunt a 12-foot whale or even bigger. No one did that. Do you know why? Because the indigenous people loved life. Okay? A dugout canoe is tiny in comparison to a whale. Just in case you guys don't know what a dugout canoe is, it's a tree. You have a fire on it, and you dig out the trunk of the tree and make it a canoe. The indigenous people did use dugout canoes, but they were not nuts. They did not go whaling in those things. Make a long story short, their version of whaling was the whales beaching themselves, them taking those little dugout canoes across the bay and cutting up that whale and bringing it back. So that famous picture of an indigenous person with a spear out in the ocean standing up in a narrow dugout canoe? That more than likely did not happen. So when they did see a whale beached, a lot of these indigenous people will set fires on the beach, kind of like signal fires, to have other people from the inland come in and help them out. So a lot of Europeans might have sought these signal fires, and this is probably one theory on how Fire Island got its name, through the signal fires of the indigenous people. Now, European conquest of it happened mainly with Lion Gardner. It really wasn't as peaceful as the Gardner family would say, if you ever did those old school tours of Sagatos Manor. So local tribes were starting to lose sovereignty over the land, mainly with Lion Gardner. They wanted the rights to the whaling, essentially, whales beaching themselves. Later, another eastern part of the land, which will be, I guess, mainly Smith's Point today, William Tanger Smith, he's going to purchase that area, and the Unkachug are going to be pushed all the way down north to Poonspatuck Creek, which is the Unkachug Reservation today, which is probably one of the oldest areas to have a reservation as well in New York. When the Europeans got here, they're going to have a bunch of numerous names for the island. The first is Raccoon Island. Why? Probably because there was a lot of raccoons. The second is Seal Beach, probably because there was a lot of Seal Beach. And the third, I have no clue where it came from, Shawanki. I don't know if that was Dutch. I don't even have a clue, but it's in the records. But the other theories of Fire Island is this. They believe it might have been a misreading on a Dutch map for five means four islands because they weren't all adjoined. They thought maybe Fire Island. If you go to the Fire Island Lighthouse, they make a little joke, and hey, it might be true too. They think the word Fire Island came from all the poison ivy and the Europeans not experiencing that, and it burned. So they called it Fire Island. So once again, I gave you three theories on where they got the name from. I'm going to lean on the theory of the signal fires. That's the one that makes the most sense to me. I want you guys to look at this house right here. Now, that is a house. If you were to put this house in Ocean Beach today, you can get an easy $700,000. You get some nice high rent in that house. Nice, some hipsters come out from the city, give you what, like $3,800 a month for rent on that because it's kind of small. So once again, look at this cool, trendy little house. So Europeans, this is actually Bayman. You see the shellfish rakes, clam rakes, or bull rakes they call them. Sorry about that. You got a little heating system. They got a dinghy for a roof. One of my favorite pictures of Fire Island. So the Europeans, the first thing they harvested from Fire Island was seal skin. And they had a big problem with conservation, really big problem. They didn't understand the concept that things might have been limited. Seal skin had a high value because the seal skin, once again, is waterproof when you make something out of it. Well, unfortunately, they ran out of seals. They literally hunted the seals pretty much virtually non-existent. They stopped migrating there. Well, the second big boom was whale. Well, we all know how that worked. They kept going further and further from the shore until it became rare. Once again, whale blubber. I'm speaking to Sag. I think Sag Harbor's on here. We don't got to explain how important whale is. They boiled the blubber to make the oil, which was fuel for lighting, and even also for commercial belt lubing, et cetera, et cetera. Well, whales became nearly extinct from the island. Now, the other one, which is interesting, skipping a little bit, going before this, it's called salt hay. People forget that Fire Island originally, once again, had an abundance of salt hay, and we had one of our first cow ranches here. So people used to float livestock over on barges and let them graze. Well, overgrazing destroyed Fire Island because you destroyed the root system. And by 1784, they made it a law that you cannot have livestock graze the dunes and you cannot harvest wood or cut wood on Fire Island. The next one is waterfowl. Waterfowl became a really popular commodity here on Fire Island as well. The Long Island duck, everyone wants it. It's a specialty during the Gilded Age. Everyone wants a Long Island duck. Make a long story short, what's going to happen is we're going to hunt them near extinction as well. And we're going to deplete that population until we start farming duck, when we have the duck farms. And of course, the last one is going to be the shellfish industry. That's another thing that's going to be a boom. The Hurricane of 38 is going to wipe that out completely, and that's going to more than likely be in the Back Bays area. So what is left on Fire Island to make it profitable? After all, this is New York. We remake our economy. Every time we're down, we figure out a way to come right back up. When we talk about the state thing, Excelsior. Excelsior is our slogan in New York, always rising, right? Well, guess what? We will come back again and rise to the occasion again. Right now, we're not there yet. Fire Island economically is dead essentially. Exhaustion of harvesting and over-harvesting resources literally made Fire Island economically dead. What's going to happen is we're going to have people called the wreckers inhabit Fire Island. There's not much records of them, but you're going to have a couple of articles here and there if you do the ProQuest newspaper searches. So fun fact, the wreckers are going to be essentially pirates. They're going to make ships crash into the shore and rob the ship. That's what wreckers do. So Fire Island's going to be inhabited by these salacious, nefarious people, and also a lot of squatters are going to inhabit Fire Island around this point, and just people trying to fall off the grid. And what's going to happen due to the wrecks? You're going to have a 74-foot lighthouse constructed in 1826. One of the wreckers that are going to be known is Jeremiah Smith. Allegedly, Jeremiah Smith had his house in current day Cherry Grove, or Hogshead, Head, it was called back then. Jeremiah Smith and his son were wreckers. That's pretty much what they did. They lit signal fires, confused people, and when they came into the inlet, the boat beached itself and they robbed the boat. Um, that was the most documented pirates we're going to have on Fire Island. So around 1826, they're kind of going to be a relic because now you have we're going to have presence here. You're going to have the Life Saving League building up every little spot. You're going to have a 74-foot lighthouse. But in the summer of 1850, there's going to be a horrible, horrible, horrible boat wreck. And this horrible boat wreck is going to kill the first female war correspondent and female activist. According to some historians, once again, according to some, it set the feminist movement back by 10 years when she died. This person is Margaret Fuller. Margaret Fuller is coming back from reporting from coming back from Italy on a boat called the Elizabeth, which is going to hold a bunch of marble and other things and other products. And they're going into New York Harbor. They get caught in a horrible storm and they're going to sink off the coast of Point of Woods. And this is where, believe it or not, one of the inlets were. And once again, when we talk about inlets, inlets open on Fire Island in the storm and close in Fire Island after the storm years later through longshore drift. So once again, inlets are always temporary. So they open and they close, they open and they close. So when they get ripped open through a storm, longshore drift, sand blowing from the Hudson Canyon, plugs it back up, root system, boom. And this inlet was at Point of Woods. So she is going to die in this wreck, and it's going to attract a lot of negative attention to Fire Island. And the first thing they're going to blame is, where was the lighthouse? What happened? So Margaret Fuller's death is going to be a catalyst for the 74-foot lighthouse to be replaced with the 168-foot lighthouse that is there today in 1858. Once again, if you see the lighthouse, you can see the old relic right next door by the Lens building. The base is still there. And what's interesting about the Fire Island Lighthouse, you're going to have expansions of the Life Saving League. So this is how they did things, which is kind of cool. They're going to shoot a line to the distressed ship, and essentially it's like a zip line. They're coming through a zip line all the way to shore. Really interesting, really industrious for the age. Now, this is my second favorite picture. Remember I told you the one with the dinghy on top was my first? That one right there. The other way to rescue is straight up to the boats going against the current. And they're going to go against the current, have everyone lowered down in there. And of course, one of my favorite things about this picture is their mascot, their dog, right there. Right there, just barking away. I thought it's one of my favorite pictures. Again, I told you, hopefully it'll be your favorite picture. These pictures are actually available in Bayshore Historical Society. Ask from the Martin Anderson pictures. Martin Anderson was a local photographer for local news, and he also was a photographer, I think, with insurance companies when these boats ran aground. And all these pictures are perfectly preserved. Go to the Bayshore Historical Society and ask for Barry. He will give you, he will teach you something, and he will show you these pictures, and I hope you have about an hour and a half to kill. Now, the other interesting thing about Fire Island was, you guys really don't know Bayshore, but I'm sure we can think about this. And this is a myth. Once again, this is a legend, and sometimes these legends might be true. One of the lighthouse keepers was Felix Dominy. Felix Dominy was a lighthouse keeper who had salvage rights on a lot of boats that ran aground. Felix Dominy also had luxury hotels / rooming houses in Bayshore. And every boat that ran aground, it seemed like he got a lot of stuff to put in those luxury housing / hotels, since he did have salvage rights, which is really, really interesting. Now, the running joke is maybe when he saw a boat that had potential wealth on it, the lights went out and it ran aground. But once again, his tenure in the White House was short-lived. And the Domini House, well, where it used to stand, is still there, parts of it at least. So now the lighthouse is going to bring a bunch of interest there. And this interest is going to lead to the first resort communities. And remember, I told you about Kismet? Kismet is going to be the first resort community, and it's going to be the Surf Hotel on Fire Island in 1871. David Samus is going to build this, but we're going to have a little setback in the 1810 and 1890s. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a cholera outbreak aboard a boat coming from Hamburg, Germany into New York port, and they needed to have a quarantine station for people with cholera. So make a long story short, New York State bought the the Surf Hotel. And it's going to make everything around the area very cheap to buy after that. Because one of the worst things you want to be at is in an area that has cholera. So if you look at the old postcards, you're going to see come to Bayshore, come to Surfside Hotel, come here, come there, cholera free. They're going to affirm that they're cholera free. And if anyone knows how someone dies of cholera, that's one of the most miserable ways to go. So that being said, this is going to be set up for a little while, but it's going to come back on a stable foot again, and that resort community is going to be thriving. So moving on, as I said, since the property is cheap, you're going to have canning companies and canning factories building up there. So one of the canning companies is going to be in Lonelyville and Fair Harbor, and it's going to be Captain Clock. And in Seaview, it's going to be the Gil Smith Canning Fish Company, and workers are going to live there as well. So these communities are going to start being developed around company towns as canned fish and also canned shellfish. Blue Point oysters, they were in cans originally. And more than likely, they were canned at some of these factories. Well, more than likely. Early 1882, the Cherry Grove community is going to start becoming a magnet for a lot of bohemians and artists. And this isolated area is going to bring a lot of vaudeville people out there. You're going to have your families out there as well, coming out there. And I guess it's going to be in the early 1910s, early 20s. That's when you're going to start establishing the first openly gay community resort town. So I'm going to go with about probably 1920s. But the bohemian crowd is going to be coming out there, very open-minded, progressive in 1882, and they're going to start loving going out there because of the isolation and the lack of development. And this lack of development and isolation is going to pave the way for perfect privacy for people that are prosecuted for who they are. And this is probably going to be the main reason why Cherry Grove is going to be the first openly gay community in America. Ocean Beach, as I said before, the Wilbur family, John Wilbur in 1908 is going to market it to middle-class people, and they're going to subdivide the area a lot. And of course, if you talk about Fire Island, you got to talk about the ferries. Because if you haven't been to Fire Island, I'm sure we always have a ferry story. Well, excuse me, this is the first ferry coming from Bayshore, leaving Bayshore Creek. And this right here is the first ferry to Ocean Beach, probably one of the first ferries that went to Ocean Beach, called the Evelyn. And if you see the Evelyn, you see people hanging out, leaning over the bars, hanging out on the bow. Well, guess what? If you take the ferry home around midnight in Ocean Beach today, you probably see people doing the same thing. Except they might be feeling a little sick after a long night of drinking. So going back to this, though, same concept, same thing. This is the Evelyn, and it's about to be docked in the, whoops, sorry, went a little too far, the Bayshore Creek. But once again, when we talk about Fire Island, we got to talk about another person that had a totally different vision for it, Robert Moses. I told you we're going to circle back to him. Robert Moses is easy not to like. There's really not much to like about him here. He had a horrible personality. When I was putting this book together, let me rewind it. I was inspired to put this book together. Two things. I love Fire Island, love riding my bike on the beach, the fat tire bike, 5-inch tires going up and down to the inlet. always amazed by the no cars. I loved it. Felt like I wasn't in Long Island. And then the other part that made me amazed was reading Power Broker. Like, if you guys want to learn something about Robert Moses, I know I'm supposed to tell you buy my book, it's great, but read Robert Caro's Power Broker. I'm being honest with you. I can't be more honest with you enough. Um, I do this stuff not always for money, but because I love history. And I assume you guys love history too. Read the Power Broker. Don't be intimidated by the big length of that book. It's like 1,400 pages, maybe more, but don't be intimidated. It's not, it's an easy read. But there's one thing in the Power Broker that's not there. And this is probably one of the other reasons why I wrote this book, which is very short in comparison. Um, he only mentioned the Fire Island Parkway project in a paragraph. And I mentioned again in another couple of paragraphs. But there was so much more to it. Once again, I can't advise you enough to read The Power Broker. Um, you know something? If you're going to take this book out in the library, take out The Power Broker first. I assure you, you will not regret it. Because once again, I am telling you this, assuming you all love history. The one thing we talk about in The Power Broker is Robert Moses being arrogant. I think that's the first takeaway you're going to get. And when I was in the Robert Moses files, reading it for about a week, of course, Bob Caro was in it much longer than me. When I was in it, and he also interviewed a lot of people that were alive at the time. When I was in it reading those files, the stuff that he used to say about people was horrible. He had something to say about everyone. People of color. He had something to say about Jewish people. He was Jewish. I don't know what he had against Jewish people, but he had something against them too. He had something against everybody. He was a bigoted, arrogant person. But once again, going to the top of the hour, like I said, at least I think it's the top of the hour, we all drove on a Robert Moses road today. We all drove on a Robert Moses road today. And once again, it is hammered in the book Power Broker. It is definitely a great read. But Moses, he lived on Thompson Avenue in Babylon, and he used to rent a boat to check out the bay all the time. And he used to pass an area called High Hills Beach. High Hills Beach, he loved it. It was great. He used to write in his memos, this is so awesome. You can like not see anybody from miles and miles away. It's great. Peace of mind. And you know, me, you, and most of you on the call might say that's a great place to keep preserved. Well, Robert Moses wanted a 4-lane highway there. He wanted the most scenic highway in America. And this is where he got his vision. This is where it was birthed, essentially. So Robert Moses wanted a 4-lane highway traversing along the South Shore, Meadowbrook, Ocean Parkway, cutting through Jones Beach, all the way down through Fire Island over a bridge, cutting through Dune Road to Montauk. Anything in his path, he wanted gone. So, that being said, High Hills Beach today is Jones Beach. He got rid of the entire area. He literally leveled the little town that was there in High Hills Beach and got rid of it. So the whole thing about this was High Hills Beach was 2,400 acres and it was about 4 feet above sea level. So the first thing Moses did was he raised it above sea level by 12 feet. And you know, getting rid of people's homes that were in their families for centuries is horrible, but draining 40 million cubic yards of sand to raise 2,400 acres above sea level, 12 feet is pretty interesting. The other thing, what he's going to do is he's essentially going to destroy all the wetlands. He's going to decimate it. He's going to literally plug the wetlands up with cement. And if you know the wetlands, it's like a boundary for flooding. It's like a paper towel when you have a leak or water leak, and it absorbs the water. So, make a long story short, he's going to essentially destroy all these wetlands by building pavement. And the ones he don't destroy, he's going to trench for the mosquitoes. This is them building it. And of course, this is Sid Shapiro, his master engineer. Now, when Robert Moses is building this, he's going to design Jones Beach Water Tower, a replica of St. Mark's Cathedral in Venice, because he wanted to bring that culture here. Also, he's going to use, there we go, Art Deco / Italian Renaissance architecture for the bathhouses. It is going to be very innovative for the time. Also on the boardwalk, that's about 2 miles. It's going to be aluminum railing and it's going to make you feel like you're on a cruise ship. And you're going to have flags from various states greeting visitors in the mall over there. And you're also going to have little things like a Native American village, a golf course, et cetera, et cetera. He's going to make it a one-stop shop. And essentially, it was a hit. And even today, it's a hit. Jones Beach, I think at its highest point, had about 8 million visitors a year. And if you look at Mount Rushmore, it doesn't have nowhere near that. I think it has 2 million visitors a year, Mount Rushmore. So it's going to be an achievement. But at the same time, while he's building this, he's having this grandiose dream of making this giant road. And it's going to be a high dune road, and it's going to hold all the cement in place. You're going to put the cement on top of sand, and the sand's not going to go nowhere. That's Robert Moses' logic. And guys, I just want to digress for 1 minute here. I think this will be a healthy place to digress. If you ever drove on a Robert Moses Road, you'll notice zip lanes, merging lanes are less than an eighth of a mile sometimes. Well, fun fact, Robert Moses never had a driver's license. He's going to design every road you drive on in the metro area of New York City, and he's not going to have a driver's license. And that should make so much sense to you after that. Because if you've been on the LIE, if you've been on the Southern State, if you've been on any Robert Moses road, you know it has some structural flaws in their design, mainly on the merging lanes. So Robert Moses not having a driver's license should not surprise you. He had a chauffeur. The other thing about Robert Moses was he held multiple positions within the state. He was in head of the Power Authority. He was in head of parks, state parks, transportation. Moses checked Moses. He had more power than the governor. So when he did something, he did it. And Rowley's making these 4-lane highways. He is reshaping towns and getting rid of towns. Oak Island, Oak Beach, Captree Island, Gilgo Beach. He's getting rid of them by the second and reshaping them. The first one is going to be the 344 lots he's going to allocate for Oak Beach. The first people to agree to his highway gets to keep their homes. Everyone else, they go bye-bye. Next step to completing his highway was complete. He's going to look at other areas. He's going to look at Fire Island. Of course, Moses always argued the extension of his highway is going to hold the dunes together. And people were pissed. Locals, once again, locals that we probably didn't have connections to at the time, they would argue that this area is giving up the hunting and the fowling rights that Queen Anne gave to us. Rich landowners such as the Goulden Mustard family, you know, the Goulden Mustard, Goulden, they took out full-page ads, told them to vote against it. But despite that, Moses always won on the argument. The benefit of a few should not take away the privileges of many. But the problem was Moses had a vision on who he wanted to enjoy these parks. And it was not everyone. Once again, before we get to that, this town is gone and it's forgotten. It's the island, Munis Island. This island right here, these are the only two images that exist because they didn't buckle to Moses. It was a children's hospital and the other half was a resort community. Well, Moses didn't really care about rickets, children having rickets too much. So he got rid of the entire children's hospital and got rid of the entire island, and it became fill for some of the inlets he plugged up. So he literally made this whole area disappear. Now, while this is coming, people are losing their mind, people are scared, people are selling. Sell, sell, sell. And guess what? Fire Island almost became a 4-lane highway. Think how crazy that is. And you're having freaking the lighthouse as a turnaround or a roundabout? That's crazy. In addition to that, think about this. Water Island is only 400 feet wide during high tide. How are you putting a 4-lane highway on 400 feet wide? But once again, this is Moses. You can't tell him anything. The Chamber of Commerce was agreeing. They were selling it. The Gleason and Dolan Development Company sold the entire town of Ocean Bay Park, but some people withheld, and they fought for a lengthy court battle. Boom, 1938 happens. This is Fire Island, by the way. If you're in Westhampton, I'm sure we heard of the Long Island Express and the Yankee Clipper. I'm sure we heard how devastating that was. Well, guess what? Surprise, surprise. Well, maybe not a surprise. It was devastating to Fire Island too. This is salt air. The areas that were devastated the most were the areas that took their dunes out. So salt air, remember I told you that the Madison Avenue white collar executives? Well, I guess they didn't know some science as well. They didn't like the idea of walking upstairs to go to the beach. They wanted to be level. They wanted to be level. So they got rid of the dunes completely. Well, Hurricane 1938 came, and this is why it's a really bad idea, and this is why we need to maintain our dunes. It literally almost wiped the entire town out of existence. Other areas got hurt. Cherry Grove got pretty beat up too, but nothing like this because you know why? They maintained their dunes. Everyone was scared after this. This was news what happened in Westhampton. This was news what happened in Fire Island. There was anxiety. Moses saw his time to go in for the kill, get an eminent domain ready. All he needs is Suffolk County to agree and vote on this. $15 million he proposed for a project in 1938. Remember, we're coming out of the Great Depression. People look at $15 million and get nervous. But whatever. Moses said people are not going to get nervous. But let's get back to this. 43-mile parkway from Fire Island Inlet all the way down. That's where it's going to be. It was going to be all the way to Southampton and eventually get rid of Dune Road. Additional construction plans will create 4 state parks and 4 tolls. Suffolk County Highway Department, Herman Bishop had his own idea, and it only cost $1 million. Replenish the dunes, dune grass, some snow fencing, and you'll probably have less than that. It'll just be in the budget. So, overwhelmingly, the town voted for Herman Bishop's plan. But Moses was very vengeful. So everyone that voted against Moses pretty much was voted out of office within their next term. Moses started having control. And that's another thing. He wielded control. He was bigoted and wielded control in a very undemocratic way. There's one journalist called Carl Grossman, fantastic guy. He wrote a scathing report about Moses and had him blackballed from newspapers. Once again, you cross Moses the wrong way, it was a wrap. And he was fueled by his ego. These roads are going to be here long after me. It's going to be my legacy, just like the pharaohs with their pyramids. And that ego and that no checks towards a to a person that had so much power is very undemocratic. It's also scary in a way. So fast forward, Moses is licking his wounds, and boom, 1950s Fire Island. It's attracted a new type of person. Well, it attracted some of the same people too. Writers, painters, the demographic of people were more environmentally friendly, they were upper middle class, and they saw themselves more embedded in Fire Island and more emotionally attached. Local towns started becoming dependent on Fire Island because there was no services in the winter. It was great. Pay taxes all year, but don't worry about doing any services in the winter. So they were starting to level out their books with Fire Island. Local downtowns started flourishing by the ferry terminals, Bayshore, Patchogue, Sayville. And once again, people started liking the idea that it did not have a highway. And also, people were getting disgusted about the environmental disasters of Long Island. By 1940, Nassau County had a population of just over 400,000, and it jumped within 20 years to 1.3 million. Now we look at Suffolk County in 1940, they had a population just under 200,000, and within their 30 years, it's going to jump to 1.1 million. 31% of the Long Island Sound and 48% of New York in total, their wetlands are going to be gone. 1 million gallons of raw sewage is going to be dumped into the Long Island Sound daily because of Connecticut, parts of Long Island, and New York City. So living on the Sound is going to be a hazard. And also, when you go swimming in the bays, you might get an ear infection and a skin rash because of the intestinal bacteria due to overflowing septic tanks. In addition to the overflowing septic tanks, the inlets are now closed, so stuff cannot be washed out by high tide. So that being said, Eastern Long Island drinking water wells are going to be contaminated, and we're going to have the cancer cluster, mainly because of DDT. Of course, we have other problems as well from industry, but DDT is going to be a big problem because it's not just going to give various cancers, it's going to destroy the osprey population and other birds that we took pride on here. Long Island's growing environmental activism is going to fuel the Environmental Defense Fund. And people are going to start looking at how we develop the region. And they're going to start looking at Fire Island and the importance of not having a highway there. In comes Murray Barbash. Now, if we know the Barbashes, I don't know if anyone here does, but it's always a small world. I think this lady right here is Susan, and I think this lady right here is Kathy. They're both still around. Murray has passed, unfortunately. And he's kind of going to be the guy at the bottom of the ninth that's going to get Moses out of here. So Murray Barbash is going to be the developer of Dunewood. He's going to love Fire Island. He's going to go there on his honeymoon because he's inspired by the hit Broadway play Season in the Sun. It's going to be about a busy businessman who's going to go to Fire Island and he's going to try to unplug and fall off the grid a little, but he has a hard time doing that because of his hyped up life. And that pretty much is going to be the Broadway play that's going to attract him to Ocean Beach. That's where the play takes place, by the way. Murray and his brother Irvin Like, who later he's going to explore Fire Island as well, is going to have an emotional attachment that's indescribable. Another person that's going to have an emotional attachment is Sylvester Wainwright, the first congressional district congressman who said this should be a national park and tempted to block anything that happened on Fire Island. Make a long story short, um, the belief is Moses is going to get involved in trying to primary him out, and he's going to run a whole campaign, take out ads saying Sylvester Wainwright was an elitist, catering to those people in the Hamptons, et cetera, trying to divide Long Islanders, make people like Murray Barbash not exist, essentially. But yeah, Moses is going to take out ads and he's going to destroy Sylvester Wainwright's career. And another person that's going to come into power is going to be Otis Pike. Now, fun fact about Otis Pike, he was just like Sylvester Wainwright and wanting to preserve Fire Island. He just wasn't clear about it. Any success to preserve Fire Island had to be the idea that you would democratize the landscape, not through a car, but through a national park. And that was going to be the argument. So Raul Moses is having Murray Barbash come along. He's trying to develop Fire Island secretly. He's buying up tracts of land, surveying the area through helicopters, being quiet. But guess what? People are talking. So I found this cool memo in his archives. Let's look at it real quick. Apparently, Lee Dennison, Suffolk County executive, first one I believe, has been talking to the county and other planning people about a continuous road on Fire Island and about other phases of this grandiose park and parkway program. Bob Gardner told me this. Is Dennison playing all sides? He won't enjoy a long official life if he is that kind of fella. A premature Fire Island story would damn near be fatal. So he's secretly trying to develop this, waiting for the next storm to use fear tactics. Well, it got out in 1961 and Murray knew and he started mobilizing and first person Moses blamed was Lee Dennison. I guess, here we go. I guess we have to sock Lee Dennison. He's a jackass anyway. Once again, Moses at his finest. So he's trying to figure out a way to primary Lee Dennison out because Moses believed in revenge. He believed in revenge and legacy. Those are the two things he believed. So once again, when I told you he's kind of hard to like after reading a lot of these memos, it's true. Plus a lot of the referrals to people from the city being animals, people of color being animals. You know, this stuff is horrible. But this is Moses. This is how he talked. This is how he referred people. He was arrogant. And it's all going to catch up to him because all those people he's arrogant to are going to work together to get his ass thrown out of power. And that's essentially what's going to happen. So the activism Murray Barbash does is perfectly designed. It's perfectly designed. So First things first, you identify all the stakeholders. Murray Barbash is going to find everyone that's connected to Fire Island. Chamber of Commerce, fishing groups, fishing clubs, homeowner associations, let's see, dune buggy associations, ferry operators, everyone. He's going to get them all in the same room and he's going to identify all the stakeholders and
So,
say, look, this right here, we're at threat. Someone had a question here? I'm sorry. No? Okay. There's a threat here. The second is he's going to create a sense of urgency. His sense of urgency is literally going to be we have to save Fire Island. Whatever you have here is not going to be here in another year. The third is to create a unified set of guiding ideas. Let's open it to democratic to everyone. Let's democratize the landscape. How are we going to do that? A national seashore. And once again, this is one of the bumper stickers. I want a Fire Island National Seashore. Fun fact, I was doing one of these lectures and someone gave it to me as a gift. It was actually by far the best gift ever because when you write the book and actually have the artifact in your hand and hang it on your wall, it's pretty cool. Not to be too sentimental here, but the other thing he's going to do, which is fun, he's going to identify everyone's personal mastery. So he's going to tell people in Salt Air and Seaview, you guys got connections. Who's your connections? Well, someone in Salt Air just happened to know Stuart Udall, the Secretary of Interior under John F. Kennedy. Stuart Udall happens to visit Fire Island occasionally. And this is going to be an example of finding people's masteries. Who do they have in their Rolodex, their books of numbers? And also, he's going to get the artist involved. He's going to tell people to paint these beautiful landscapes and put them right next to where they are. And it's going to say under the landscape, next year, this is going to be a paved road. So this is going to create this sense of urgency, essentially. So once again, he's literally going to find everyone's personal mastery. He's going to have people work the phone banks, unemployed. They'll be working all times in the morning, coming home, they'll be working at night. And Moses is going to create a two-front war for himself. People are getting tired of Moses. He's been in power since Al Smith was governor, since the 20s. He's going to be the guy that restructures New York State government. And you know something? People are tired of Robert Moses. They're tired of his arrogant self. They're tired of his highways. They're tired of these environmental disasters. And people are going to start empathizing with Barbash and these people here because now you can't argue the benefits of a few outweigh the privileges of many. You can't argue that anymore. This is going to be a national park in our backyard. And you have the environmental movement that's coming around this full circle. So Moses is going to create a two-front war, and Nelson Rockefeller wanted to get rid of Moses. So make a long story short, Raoul Moses is doing this, creating this two-front war here. Lawrence Rockefeller and David Rockefeller are going to be active in this themselves. Lawrence Rockefeller, he's going to be the one that's the big environmentalist in the family, and that's Nelson Rockefeller's brother. He's going to march into Governor Rockefeller's office and say, you better put a hold on your brother. You better get him under wraps and get him to file behind me. And if you don't, I'm going to withdraw through some of my appointments. I'm going to give up the State Power Authority, chairman of the State Park Council, president of the Long Island State Park Commission. I'm going to get rid of the Jones Beach State Parkway Commission and the Bethpage State Parkway Authority Commission. I'm going to get rid of these if you don't get a hold of your brother here. So make a long story short, Nelson Rockefeller, you can't talk to a Rockefeller like that. So he said, go ahead. So Moses gave him his resignation, stormed out of his office, and he thought the world was going to fall apart after resigning from all these 5 positions. Moses gets his sense back, calls up good old Nelson, and says, okay, I want my Parks Commission back. He's like, oh, no, I gave that to Lawrence, you know, the guy that you told me to get a hold of. So I gave him your position. And this is going to be the end. This will be the beginning of the end for Robert Moses. Yeah, he's going to hold sway over the World's Fair, essentially, but this is going to be his loss of grip of power. And by September 11th, with Stuart Udall, of course, that's the gentleman right there with the shovel, and if you notice, is personalized to Murray Barbash. It's going to be pushed through, and by September 11th, 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson is going to sign into legislation 33 miles of Fire Island National Seashore as the first Lower New York National Park. And once again, Moses is going to be bothered with this to the day he died. So Bob Caro did an interview on NPR, and I got to listen to it multiple times. And I don't think I used it in the book. I should have used it in the book, but I didn't really. I had to get more sources besides this one. But Bob Caro said when he went to visit Moses, he had a house in Oak Beach, which literally overfaces Robin Moses State Park and the Robin Moses Causeway. And once when Bob Caro came over there, because he was a Newsday reporter originally, to speak to Moses, he told Bob, "Can't you see? Can't you see that 4-lane highway that would have been there? Can't you see?" So even after he lost, it became a horrible obsession with him to have that 4-lane highway. It bothered him all the way up to probably his demise in the early 80s. But once again, we do have issues on Fire Island still. And these issues were interesting because when I was writing this book, I got to interview Irvin Like before he passed, the late Irvin Like. The guy was amazing to talk to. I had such a great time talking to him. Unfortunately, he passed. The guy was a trove of knowledge, especially with law knowledge on environmental law. So Irvin Like brought some of these ideas out. We have sea levels rising. We have increased erosion and flooding. And the jetties, we kind of over-engineered ourselves with erosion, meaning we have longshore drift and we have the jetties and the grinds. It's being blocked with the sand to expand. So essentially, you're taking sand away from the east and you're robbing it from the west. So if you notice, parts of Fire Island and either you know, the South Shore erode differently. It's because of the jetties and the grinds. So we over-engineered. We got to figure this one out. And the other thing is we have various species that are endangered on Fire Island, such as the piping plover. So how do we combat these changes for the future? And this is going to be the answer that Irvin Like said before he passed. He said the last stage to preserve Fire Island, ready? I know it sounds crazy, a United Nations World Heritage Site. I know it sounds like a grandiose plan, but hear this out. Irvin Like was working on this. Fire Island fit 2, maybe 3 of the domains. You only really need 1. Has unique beauty. There's only 7 places in the world that have hardwood forests I'm sorry, a hardwood maritime forest. Only 7 places in the world have that. Fire Island is one. That's one. The other is human struggle and human endurance or human history. The first openly gay community in America. That's huge. And also, I didn't realize this. When Europeans are coming over during their Great Migration through Ellis Island, how do they know they made it to America? What is the first thing they see? Some of you say the Statue of Liberty. No, the Fire Island Lighthouse, because that's the boat channel coming in through Europe. So it has so much significance. And then when you look at the World Heritage Sites, Liverpool, that's one, the entire city of Liverpool. Robins Island, where Nelson Mandela was jailed. The Slave Coast and the Ivy Coast. You got a lot of these World Heritage Sites that Fire Island can bring a lot more to. And Fire Island, as a World Heritage Site, would not just be, a namesake. It'll be a treaty among the world. We're sharing our best with the world. And also, think of the possibilities of the world sharing their best to keep it preserved and what that can do for the future of Fire Island. Hell, one of the biggest things of Fire Island we overlook today is horseshoe crab blood. Horseshoe crab blood is in everything, every single thing. If you ever got a vaccine, you got horseshoe crab blood in you. An IV, you got horseshoe crab blood in you. 1 gallon of horseshoe crab blood as of today is dollars 60. Really? Hold on one second. I have to double check that. $60,000? That went up a lot, actually. Hold on one second. I just have to double check that. Yeah, $60,000 a gallon. Fire Island has an exorbitant amount of horseshoe crabs. They have a breeding place in Fire Island. Keeping that preserved is really important for medical technology. Now you got the resources of the world working with you. And also think about the commerce. Think about that German tourist that has way more disposable income than, say, me going on that ferry for Fire Island to grab a few drinks. Think what that'll do for the downtowns. So once again, the imagination is the limit on the possibilities of what a World Heritage Site can do for the area. And Irvin Like was trying to work on this before he passed. But you know something? This just might be the last and third level on preserving Fire Island. So everybody, I'm wrapping up right now. I'll keep the floor open for questions. Any questions?
That was great.
Ah, thank you. Appreciate it.
That was really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. If anyone got questions, feel free to unmute themselves, share some thoughts. Give a couple minutes.
There's a lot of information. It might take us a couple of days to figure out what our questions are.
I know. There's a lot to unpack there. I apologize. But I'm very passionate about it. I feel I have to share this. What's up, Steve? How did you enjoy it? Up, you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. There we go.
I'm unmuted now. I can't see myself, which is probably good. So first of all, for everybody, I'm Steve Sanfilippo. I'm a retired professor at Maine Maritime Academy. I live on the coast of Maine, and my wife and I can go weeks without seeing or hearing another person. And it's really nice to hear Chris talking the King's English, the King's County English. I'm
Yes.
I'm laying on my accent a little. A couple of quick things. We shouldn't call Long Island Powanock because it means the land of tribute, but the tribute was paid to the Indians, Native Americans from Connecticut, who used to come down and beat the hell out of the Native people on Long Island and would extract tribute from them. So Sewanaka Isle of Shells is a much better name. My wife was born at Dr. King's Hospital in Bayshore, so we've got a long connection. Um, the idea of the World Heritage Site and all of the preservation, the environmentalism, and I'm just hopeful that it can survive what's now happening with the administration in this country. I hate to be political, but I think that anybody concerned with environmental protection and the protection of heritage sites, historic sites, small ethnic communities that can vanish has really got to be concerned at this point.
Oh, thank you for sharing.
You know what? You want to come up to Maine, to Down East Maine, and give your presentation because there's people here. Well, I'm from away. I'm from Brooklyn and then from the North Fork of Long Island. But there's people here who can't wait to make this a suburb of Boston and
Oh, wow.
destroy everything because they want to make money off of it.
Yes.
You were great.
Oh,
Chris,
thank
Great.
you.
there's a question in the chat. Can you discuss the difference between the Otic Pike wild wilderness area, which is within the overall Fire Island National Seashore?
It's just part of the Fire Island National Seashore. So, excuse me, Otis Pike Wilderness Area is an area that is not to be developed, minimum development, minimum human impact, versus other parts of the Fire Island National Seashore, which are encompassed towns, such as Ocean Beach and the shoreline being preserved. Otis Pike, minimum amount of human impact. I think that's the best way to put it. Is think of it as a very aggressive nature preserve. Did I answer the question? I can't see the chat. We good? Okay.
Good. Is Fire Island still at risk? Um, I
Of
think not.
what being developed?
Well, the question is Fire Island still at risk, nature conservation and wildlife, or have steps been taken to preserve it?
Well, you're not going to get big buildings built there. There's not going to be a highway built there, but we have other risks, such as erosion, protection of wildlife. But we there's not going to be a four-lane highway put there. Let's put it that way. So we were very successful in that, but we still have other things to keep it preserved that we still have to work on.
Are there
Yeah.
being are there are they trying to help with the erosion? Are they having plans to help with the erosion?
Well, the erosion. So okay. So I did a lot of research on this too. If you really want to get rid of the erosion on Fire Island, we over-engineered ourselves essentially with that. We got to get rid of the grinds. We got to get rid of some of these jetties because it's blocking longshore drift. So the replenishment of the sand, it's going to be kind of tough, you know? And that's really essentially what's happening. That's why you have the Army Corps of Engineers that keep coming in, refill it, refill it. Yeah, Ian, your father was really big with actually preservation of Fire Island. He was very indispensable part of that. So definitely, Arthur was definitely great. I heard a lot in my interviews. But going, I just want to finish this up real quick. But going, I got that. I came off. I apologize. But once again, we over-engineered ourselves with Fire Island. So though they are replenishing the beaches once a year, um, it's a temporary fix for a long-term thing. If that makes any sense, Miss?
Say thank you. Thank you. I
Yeah,
have
I don't know.
are,
Yes.
are they gonna try to plant because like for to save they saved the lighthouse on in Montauk they used reeds to save the lighthouse. Are they trying to do that with the Fire Island, like putting reeds to make the sand more stronger with roots?
Yeah, well, they try that all the time, but once again, the beach grass, it doesn't really mature as aggressive to keep it preserved long enough. Montauk is the end, essentially. So that's where, you don't have the groins of the jetties blocking the sand to have that area grow. So that's the other aspect of it. So it's kind of caught right there. And that's why you have the erosion problem so much. But yeah, I think I don't see the cement, but they do have a root system they're always trying to input there. But when we talk about sunken forest, I don't quote me. Don't quote me on this. I think it's Jennifer talking to me, I believe. I think sunken forest eroded by like 10 to 20% because of on the base side because of a lot of erosion too from the water level rising and saltwater contamination into the hardwood forest.
And
So
is the sunken forest covered with like water? Like is like the forest like basically has water on top of it?
no. When you go into sunken forest, you got a lot of roots there, kind of on the surface like this, kind of like Lord of the Rings a little bit. It's really beautiful. You have a nice dense canopy going in. I definitely advise you to check it out. They call it the sunken forest because it is on Fire Island. And once again, it's a hardwood forest on a barrier island where you have sand as a sediment, which has no nutrients. Where hardwood forests, you need nutrients in the soil. So that's what makes it really rare.
Thank
I
you.
No
I
problem.
think I
We have
think
another
hi.
question.
Another question.
Yep.
Okay.
Did Robert Moses end his life frustrated and dishonored?
Frustrated. He was always frustrated. That is nothing new. He was frustrated and arrogant. He had two modes. Did he with dishonor? I don't know if it was dishonor, but he definitely when the paramedics took him out of his house in Oak Beach on his final day. Um, his last words to the paramedics were, "I guess all things must come to an end." So I guess we could take that. It's not my last words, hopefully, but hopefully I have something else to say. But once again, this is just some of the things. Was he dishonored? Probably not. Not at that point. He was still kind of a golden calf in the media, if you follow what I'm saying.
I think the business of the groins and all, people have to be willing to lose their houses. When the first settlers came here, they understood that the, you didn't build on the beach.
No.
If the Bonnickers on the South Shore built fishing sheds in the summer to live in, they expected them to be washed away come the winter.
Mhm.
And, now we have people who build $1 million homes and expect the government to protect them somehow. And I really think we need to step back from that.
We do. I will say this though, because they have to redo the dune line, Marjorie, every so often, and people do lose their homes. But just a theory, once again, and I agree. And there's no more building on Fire Island, essentially. You can't really build on a dune line anymore. So we have moved away from that a little bit. But if we do take out the grinds, we have less erosion and we don't have to keep expanding the dune line in.
Right.
So yeah, so that's another thing. So those people might be able to save their homes. But the thing is, I guess it's like at this point, it's a little insanity. You keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. I think that's where we're at right now with the grinds. But here's the other duality: we need a boat channel. We need that inlet. Going to Mauritius. That is commerce for us too. So. But like little projects like the grinds in Ocean Beach, and actually they are planned to come out, according to Ian. He said they're more than likely supposed to be coming out. That should be a big, big improvement right there. And
Mm.
even if you go to Democrats Point, the end of Fire Island, which is essentially Robin Moses State Park, you can see the destruction of the jetty. It's making that island not grow, but buckle inward this way. So it's interesting. Yeah, we got to redesign because we over-engineered ourselves essentially.
I see the same thing on the North Fork. Town Beach in Southold, in my childhood, was a hugely big beach, and now they just keep throwing sand on it to try to save it.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's what they're doing right now. They have the Army Corps of
Right.
Engineers with their little like trucks just pumping sand out, bringing it all in, and then next season it's all gone. So I'm just saying, maybe getting those grinds out there. Hopefully that's say next year they'll come out. Hopefully that'll be a good shot in the arm. I know every year they bury them and every year they come back. So maybe pulling them out might work better this time.
Right.
Okay, I think maybe we have time for one more question.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Well, I
definitely.
think the grinds are metal instead of cement.
I think that was
Oh,
now we got cement ones in Ocean Beach.
Mm.
We have cement ones. We do have cement ones. I know that. I know that as a fact. We do have the cement ones. I don't think it'll be what they're made out of. I think it's yeah, I think regardless, the one they're like stone and cement. Yeah, thank you, Ian. They're cement. So, okay, any more questions?
Right. Thank you very much
Yeah, yeah,
for
sure.
taking the time to share all that with us. That was really, really fantastic. And I want to make sure you saw, Chris, the question from Ian about getting you to talk in Ocean Beach. And there's a good
Ian,
an email
yeah,
address on
I
there.
would love
Okay.
to do that. Actually, can you hold on? Let me find where you are so I can send you my email. Well, Mike, I also sent you my email too. Just confirm you got that. I want to make sure I sent it to the right Mike. Ian, once I send you my email, just confirm that you got that, okay? Give me 1 second. And I'll also throw my why not number in there.
I put my email on there for you, my trustee email. I'm a trustee in the village.
Oh, okay, cool. Hang on 1 second. Come back. Shoshana has all my contact information too, as
Awesome.
well.
Okay, I'll get it from Shoshana. Thank you.
Yeah, I actually write for Fire Island News. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah.
is a great segue for me to put one more reminder up because our honoree author from Long Island Reads also writes for Fire Island News. She has a column. So just I want to mention again, on Sunday we will be honoring Jane Rosen for her book on Fire Island. There'll be a presentation with Jane and myself at the Bayshore Library, in fact, on Sunday at 2 o'clock. So if anybody um, is interested in getting free tickets to that or the live stream, again, I've put the link in the chat.
Okay,
All
great.
right. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, if anyone has questions, I'll just say feel free to reach out to the library, and I feel free to give my email address out. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, because keep the conversation going. I'm perfectly fine with getting more feedback and everything. Okay.
All right. Good night,
Okay,
everybody.
Mike.
Thank you.